Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachayani Yavashesha Shinivadi Paschatya. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. My name is Narrotamananda, and I became a devotee a long time ago. Luckily, the devotees knew I loved halava, and they thought if I loved halava so much, if they taught me how to make halava, I'd probably do a good job. I did a very good job, and they made me the cook. This is years ago in the United States, in Detroit. I was in Detroit with Bhagavan, Indradumna Swami, and so many other devotees. The mood in the temple was very sweet and very family-like, and it was a very successful temple. We made lots of devotees. We went on Sankirtan to the worst neighborhoods, the best neighborhoods all over Detroit. After some time, Bhagavan, Indradumna, they went to Paris because Srila Prabhupada requested Bhagavan to go to Paris. In time, I also came to Paris. So when I arrived, I was asked to be the head pujari. I was asked to be in charge of the kitchen. I said, okay, no problem. For 1.5 years, I was serving in Paris, which is where I first met Vishvadevi, not knowing that we would basically follow each other around to so many temples and work together for so many years. But I arrived about 6 months after Radha Parashwar were installed, and just working together with the devotees and things increasing and preaching and more devotees, Paris was, really developing. Deity worship was developing, Sankirtan was developing, preaching was developing, Sunday feasts were big. It was a very, very, very successful temple. And in 1975, that was the first big Mayapur Vrindavan festival. I decided I wanted to come. I came a little late. Most of the devotees had left. I had to fly to India by myself. I arrived in Delhi by myself. I went to the Tadar Lane temple by myself. Tejas told me how to get to Mayapur. I got to Mayapur just in time to be sicker than hell. So I had the diarrhea, the whatever you could get, I had. I was really sick. And after a while, I felt better and enjoyed the Mayapur environment and atmosphere. And shortly after Mayapur, we were coming to Vrindavan. And my plan was to go to India for 1 month on pilgrimage. And I was very serious about my deity worship and my cooking. And I was the kind of person that wanted to do everything in a very traditional manner. So when I learned to cook from an expert Indian cook, like a professional Indian cook, and I didn't want to make pizza for Krishna. I wanted to make kachori. I wanted to make all the things that I can read in Shastra. So in the same way, regarding the deities, being raised in Western culture, now I'm working in a different way. It's a more esoteric, spiritual way. So I looked forward to go to India to see what was the culture, what was my experience in India. So when I arrived, I had a distinct feeling of coming home. Although people were still wearing bell-bottoms, it was 1975, and it was very different from America, but still something here made me feel very comfortable. So we went to Vrindavan, and of course it was the Tunga and, the sand, and it's just a very, very, very different Vrindavan than we're experiencing today. And everything was new, everything was unusual. Here was a temple where they were installing more deities than all of ISKCON put together. I mean, generally in the West, when we open a temple, you get a little storefront. You go on Sankirtan, you have a few pictures on the altar, And over time, things develop. You make devotees, you collect money, and slowly, you get the little deities. And it may take years to build up to having a really developed temple. But this is the first temple that Srila Prabhupada was built for us, for ISKCON, for our service, and for the deity worship and everything. So it was amazing to see the size of it and the scope of it, and it was very, very inspiring. So, all the pujas were going on because Prabhupada was very concerned about the Brahminical culture here, that, they're very strict and they're very opinionated, and everybody's got an opinion about everybody. And because we are Westerners coming from America that Prabhupada brought back to India, he wanted to ensure that things were done in a proper way that people could not find fault. So all the rituals were going on, and these were a lot of deities. There were 10 deities. So to take care of this number of deities, this size and scope of deity worship, requires a lot of manpower. But the Vrindavan temple was only a handful of devotees. There was not big manpower. And, it's like the deities are, you chant the last mantra, the deities are there on the altar. Now you have to do artik. Then you have to do artik again. Then you have to do artik again, and you have to cook for them, and you have to wake them up, and you have to clean, and you have to have their clothes ready. So there's so many aspects to deity worship. And Srila Prabhupada's Pandit, Pradumna, he established a very high standard because he was familiar with the bhakti, what is it? Not the Archana Padati, the Hari Bhakta Vilas. So he created a very high standard for the deity worship. Like I said, every deity had their own plate for prasad, for offering the bhoga. 10 plates. And then we made a schedule for cooking and what we're going to offer at Mangal Artik and what we're going to offer for lunch, and like this. So generally all over the world, it was mostly women doing deity worship. Jamuna was the expert, Shalavati was the expert in London and LA. So there were a few men doing deity worship, but not that much. So because here I was in Vrindavan, so Jayatirtha, who was kind of like into deity worship and was kind of like the expert in deity worship, he asked my friend, Govardhan Prabhu, who is the temple president of Detroit and also a wonderful person and a gentleman and a lovely pujari and dresser of the deities. They asked him, would you stay in Vrindavan and be head pujari? He said, no, I'm not ready to live in Vrindavan. This is a very special place. It's a very sacred place, and he wanted to go back to his service in Detroit. So then, second, plan B, let's ask Narottam. So he came and talked to me, and I said, well, actually, I would stay. I think there's so much to be learned in India. I think to be immersed in the culture is really the way you learn. What is the tradition of dressing the deities? Whether it's cooking, deity worship, puja, it's like this is it. This is where it comes from. So, but I said, go talk to Bhagavan. Bhagavan and I went to university together, so we were good friends. And he really trusted me and knew that if I was there in the deity department or the kitchen, he didn't have to worry about it. So they asked Bhagavan, he said, no way. Narottam's not staying, no way, he's coming back to Paris. And we had a staff of about 15 women. And everything was just glorious. It was like everybody was very into their service, and we dressed the deities, we cleaned, we cooked. It was just really, the deity worship really developed a lot. So Bhagavan didn't want to lose me. Not that I was responsible, but still I was kind of the head and directing things. But Srila Prabhupada, what can be more important than this temple? Vrindavan, coming back to India, and the first temple that we're going to open. So ultimately, I stayed in Vrindavan. So I was not expecting that. It's kind of like I give the example sometimes of diving off the high diving board, hoping they haven't moved the swimming pool by the time I hit the water. I didn't know what's going to be in India. India was very difficult, and Vrindavan in particular, because it's very cold in the winter, it's very hot in the summer. In those days, there was no cell phones, there was no bottled water, and there was no manpower. So Prabhupada said each zone had to give a few people, 2, 3, I can't remember what it was. So then if you're a temple president in America and you have a choice of giving your perfect Sankirtan girl who collects and is always gentle and says yes to everything, or you have some kind of like heavy ego male who's a troublemaker, who are you going to leave in India? Okay, you're independent-minded, you go to India. So, of course, there was all kinds of people left in India, including Loitaksha and Rasagya, who are just wonderful. So there was many wonderful devotees, but none of us were experienced in India. So Pradumna created a standard for waking the deities in the morning. I think it took 7 people. So we have these huge altars. So 1 pujari for each altar to ring the bell, wake the deities, touch their feet, take the little deities, take them out of their bed, make the bed, put them on the altar, put them in their stand, put on their crowns. Put the crowns on the big deities, make sure they look neat. Then you had 3 other people, that was for each altar. Then you had 3 more people that would come and wipe the floor and have their artik tray and get ready to do artik. And the next person was in the kitchen making the plates. So for Mangala Artik, we offered 5 items. Times 10 plates, that's 50 things you had to serve out. For lunch, we made 25 items. That means times 10 plates, that's 250 things you had to serve out just to make the offering ready. So it was a very evolved and very high standard, very labor intensive, and who was doing the work? People that had no experience in India. So for example, some mornings, seven people came to wake the deities. Some mornings there was only me. Nobody. You have no way to contact anyone. Where are you? What's going on? What's wrong? People are coming into the temple room, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm still waking the deities, going down the whole list. Nobody's in the kitchen making the sweets. Nobody, it was a big responsibility and a lot of pressure. Or somebody would be sick and not come to do their artik or not dress the deities. I have to cover. Somehow it has to be done. One time I remember there was nobody to do artik because it's 3 pujaris for every artik. I mean, think of the framework of it all. So we went and I told Maharaj, you have to do the next artik. There's nobody. So he sent a servant. So finally we had 3 pujaris. But, the weather, the climate, the situation, the mosquitoes, people not being familiar with India, it was really a struggle. But of course, it's Vrindavan. It's ecstatic. And Srila Prabhupada was here so much. And it was very personal and intimate, and he was very accessible here. And of course, every devotee wants to please Prabhupada. So I remember they asked me, will you stay and be head pujari? Ultimately, it was decided I would. The very next day was the second night of the big doing artik in front of all the Prabhupada's God brothers and all the people that came and the local politicians and all the sadhus. So Jamuna had arranged beautiful lamps on the altar, big silver lamps that would be lit while puja's going on. And all of a sudden they realized there's no ghee in the lamps because whoever went shopping bought enough just to start it out. It was nobody's job to replace it. It was nobody's job to shop. It was nobody's job to do all these things. So it's like you just jump starting a temple instead of slowly developing it like in the West. Here it's like you built a huge place and it's like 0 to 100 and you have to be ready. And we weren't exactly ready. So Prabhupada made a comment, they cannot do this. I felt bad because I felt responsible, but I was only in charge for about 2 hours. So somebody went to the Loy Bazaar and got some ghee. And then Bhavananda went on the altar in the middle of the artik, put the ghee in, lit the lamps. So that was the second night. The first night was Prabhupada, the glorious picture of Srila Prabhupada doing the artik, the first artik. It was just fabulous. So, of course, it was much more facility than we could have dreamt. But it takes time to work into it, to learn the systems, to train people, for people to be healthy, for people to be in communication. So when I went to Bombay some years later and also became the head pujari, and I said everybody has to stay in the same place. 3 pujaris have to come to every artik. They have to come 15 minutes early. You have to see that everybody's there. Otherwise, quickly you get another pujari. Everybody has to sleep in the same place. Bombay was easy. Vrindavan was a real struggle. When I first came, they said, oh, the devotees are staying in Fogel Ashram. Well, my last name is Fogel, which in German means bird. But actually, this is Fogla, F-O-G-L-A, and my name is F-O-G-E-L. But how it's pronounced, I thought, do I have relatives here in Vrindavan? So, I mean, Vrindavan was absolutely magical, absolutely difficult. It was a huge responsibility, but to serve Prabhupada, to please him, to rise to the occasion, the importance of the occasion, I mean, we would do anything. Whether we were in Detroit going to the most dangerous neighborhoods and chanting Hare Krishna and ringing everybody's bell, where white people wouldn't go, and we're ringing the bell, Hare Krishna. So whether it's doing Sankirtan in Detroit or deity worship in India, because to me, deity worship in India is Sankirtan. But in those days, we could never have dreamed in our wildest imagination this number of people in Raman Reti, which was in the middle of nowhere, where rickshawallas didn't want to go because they were worried about dacoits and they were worried that they couldn't get a ride back to Loy Bazaar. So from that to this, it's just unbelievable. Of course, we're missing all the sand. We have crazy construction everywhere, and you know, the real Vrindavan is a bit too much covered for us. I mean, including the Parikram path, but still, this is Radha and Krishna's place. So it's a great honor to be here. I was here 50 years ago. I was planning to come for a month. I stayed for a year. But after a year in America, I came back to Bombay. I was head pujari for 10 years. And basically, I'm still in India. So it's like 50 years later, it's like, India's pretty much in my blood. So I wanted to share a little bit of course, people like Pradyumna should be here because he was a very important person in this temple. And there's other people, so many people who served here over the years. But I would like to take a few more minutes to read a Vyas Puja offering that I wrote to Srila Prabhupada 10 years ago. And it was right after the 40th anniversary of opening the temple. And I think it's quite relevant to our situation. And so I think it will be meaningful if I read it, if you don't mind. Do we have time? It's not that long. Dear Srila Prabhupada, you entered as the candle within the cave. You entered as the candle within the cave of our existence and became the sun of our day and the moon in our evening sky. You engaged us in your grand vision, though we are insignificant facets on the jewel that is you. You are Krishna's dear servant and intimate associate. This truth is beyond my current capacity of understanding, but I acknowledge that it is far from ordinary. I do comprehend that each of us loves you deeply. We are somewhat of a ragtag group, though we sincerely strive in our attempts to serve you. Pure love and surrender seem easy, but in practice are not so simple due to lifetimes of conditioning. Repeated births have lodged habits difficult to break, but desire to please you creates the hope of possibility. You are kind, gentle, and encouraging, but also more heavy than can be weighed. You are fixed on the goal of Chaitanya's truth and Radha Krishna Leela. You are strong and unwavering in your preaching. Your aim is high, your guidance firm, but often we find ourselves limited by imperfect service to you. I recently returned from the 40th anniversary celebration of opening your Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan. We experienced a nice mood of appreciation and inclusiveness, which was very satisfying. It takes greater love to see the good than the defects. I felt your presence more in this mood. I hope you were pleased. I met 2 of your dear sons there for the first time in 30 years. They have always been a potent team and were reunited again doing their magic. Gunarnava and Surabhi Prabhus. For years they struggled to bring your dreams to fruition, and what a success it has been. Sitting under the scattered trees and open spaces of Ramanreti, gradually visioning and building a temple simply because you desired it. And before anyone, Gurudas, Jamuna, and a few others dedicated themselves in spite of their lack of Hindi and the severe climate of dust, heat, and mosquitoes to ensure the success of your first construction project. Through the years, many others played their part in this Vrindavan story, assisting in manifesting your envisioned oasis in Krishna and Balaram's playground. I know of no other person who could attract such a variegated crew to work together as if fastened on thread through the garland of your love while expressing their service and surrender. Each of us shares a unique capacity to move the devotional effort forward according to ability and commitment. This festival highlighted our combined efforts to assist in your desire to glorify the Lord and his pastimes in Vrindavan. The more we remember you, as well as recognize the minute reflections of your qualities within us, the more we shall come together as family. A family may not be without differences, that is only natural, but a mature family has respect and positive appreciation for each member's contribution, as well as an overall feeling of love. Therefore, the more we can see the unity of what we share, the stronger we become. The more we look for differences, the more divisive we become. You are our superglue. If you are in the forefront, we easily fall into formation. If individual egos come into play, things become confused, leading to bickering and division. This festival was satisfying because everyone remembered you. We spoke about you and appreciated those who assisted in your efforts and your struggles. We remembered the challenges that were faced and how these difficulties were stepping stones or markers on our individual spiritual journeys. We observed the desired fruit of each devotee. We observed that the desired fruit of each devotee was the simple hope to witness your beaming smile and ultimate satisfaction. Thank you for giving us a chance to serve you, for giving us each other, for our memories of you, and these special years and irreplaceable moments. We may not be perfect. We may not be fully mature and as ripened as you, but we had the good fortune of being attracted by your grace, and through service we have become family. When many of us are gathered together, speaking from the heart, I'm reminded of your determination, your humility, your humor, your strength, your intelligence, your practicality, your warmth, your vision, your common sense, your devotion, your elegance, your sensitivity, your wisdom, and much more. I offer unlimited appreciation to my God brothers and God sisters for the gift of sharing their thoughts and memories of you including those that have left us much too soon, rejoining your service elsewhere. Your servant, Narrotamananda Das.